Good morning.
Good morning.
And a good morning it is. A lovely autumn day. I'm happy to be here and thanks for coming out. Well, I think it's a good day for a poem. For all. To be alive. On a September morn, fording a stream, barefoot, pants rolled up, holding boots, pack on, sunshine, ice in the shadows, northern Rockies, rustle and shimmer of icy creek waters, stones turn underfoot, small and hard as toes, cold nose dripping, singing inside, creek music, heart music, smell of sun on gravel. I pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the soil of Turtle Island, one ecosystem, in diversity, under the sun, with joyful interpenetration for all. That's Gary Snyder. Still with us at 90 years old. Zen poet. Went to Japan in the 50s and studied Zen and had produced a wonderful body of ecological writings. And so that's a little different take on the Pledge of Allegiance, which we could all use. And so there you have it. So autumn is a wonderful time for me. I like to go on walks in the forest, watch the leaves drift. And in China, for several millennia, the poets would wander in nature and compose poetry in the fall and the spring. So it's a lovely time. And I often read a book of essays by Henry David Thoreau in the fall, his natural history essays. And one in particular is called Autumnal Tints. And he's exploring the spiritual aspect of fall. So it's not scientific or chemistry, but an actual luminous awareness. Within nature. And one of the interesting aspects of Thoreau is that he wrote a little essay entitled Civil Disobedience. And that essay greatly influenced Gandhi. In Gandhi's writings on peaceful civil disobedience. And Gandhi influenced Martin Luther King with his writings. So Thoreau, there in the woodlands of Massachusetts, his work rippled out throughout the world. this practice period, I'm the Shuso, the head student, and part of my practice is giving 3 talks, and this is the first of the 3, and it's on the Heart Sutra, which most of you are familiar with. We actually chanted it this morning, and I don't know if it chose me or I chose it, but I really resonate with that particular sutra. And the first time I ever chanted it or heard it was here, about 15 years ago. However, the end of it, the mantra, actually, I was reading Alan Watts maybe 30 years ago, and he used that to finish one of his pieces of writing. So I remember that, but this is where I was introduced to the Heart Sutra, to my good fortune. And so we will be exploring that amazing teaching by Lord Buddha. But that particular writing wasn't written by Lord Buddha, as the teachings are there, but the writing came about later by other beings that are unknown. The place and who wrote the sutra is unknown, but they're the core. The Heart Sutra is the core of Buddhist teachings. In a nutshell, it's not only an amazing piece of religious writing and teaching, but it's also an artwork. I consider it a piece of creative writing. Now, sutra is Sanskrit, which means a thread or a string. And so the sutras are the Buddhist teachings. And so I see this sutra and the sutras as perhaps a thread or a string of pearls of wisdom. These highly concentrated spiritual teachings that are medicine to all of us. And these teachings also have a fragrance of prajna. Prajna has a fragrance, the fragrance of wisdom. The Buddha first taught in Sarnath, the first turning of the wheel. Which is not far from Varanasi. It's about 8 miles. And we are told that the Buddha studied in Varanasi. And I mean, to this day, it is the center of Vedic spiritual culture, what we call Hinduism. And so Buddha was very active in interacting with the teachers of his day. The Jains, Jain religion started then, Mahavira, and the various Brahmins, and Buddhism grew out of him questioning those different spiritual teachings. And he took what he thought was valuable and true, and then he moved on and opened up to the awakening of being a Buddha. And from them, I believe a couple of things was he integrated the teachings of karma and reincarnation. And even Buddhists have an issue with reincarnation because some of them don't believe it because they can't prove it. How are you going to prove reincarnation? I'm here. I'm reincarnated, so there you have it. It's an interesting topic. Anyway, the Buddha was in Varanasi, and it was an amazing place, and still is. It's one of the oldest continuously occupied cities in the world, possibly 5,000 years or so. So, but Buddha didn't go from Varanasi to Sarnath. He went to the Bodhi tree, which is 70 miles away or so, and then came back to Sarnath. And it's an energy center of spirituality. That's why he went back to that area. And he's sharing his teachings with the people that he studied with his insights. And so that is considered the first turning of the wheel. And the core teachings of Buddhism are the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And that's extremely vital to us every day. So that was the first turning of the wheel. And at some point later in Buddha's practice and teaching, he was essentially planting seeds, I believe, to prepare the world for the next teaching, which would be the second turning of the wheel. And those teachings are all within the Mahayana Sutra Prajnaparamita literature, the perfection of wisdom. And it is said that the Buddha gave these teachings on Vulture Peak. I actually visited Vulture Peak. I had the good fortune to go there. And you take this cable car up, this rickety cable car. You're hoping it doesn't crash or fall apart. And you're going up there, and it's not a mountain, but it's pretty high. And there's all these large boulders everywhere, and monkeys running around jumping on the boulders. And there's a beautiful stupa at the top that the Japanese culture had donated and built. And so it's quite a lovely place. So in Buddha's time, there were probably just some footpaths. And I didn't see any vultures. It's called Vulture Peak, but lots of monkeys. And so apparently, that's where the Buddha gave the Prajnaparamita teachings. That's one version of it. And the Heart Sutra is such an interesting teaching in the sense that it embodies a lot. I haven't read all these sutras by any means. It embodies the core teachings of Buddhism. We've been chanting it here every day, the Makahanya Haramita Shinyo. Sanskrit, Bhagavati Prajnaparamita Hrideya. And since I've heard this here some 15 years ago, I go, oh, that's fascinating. That's such a fascinating thing. It doesn't make any sense. It's kind of contradictory. It's paradoxical. But of course, it's being taught at a Buddhist temple, so I says, okay, I'll work with it, even though it's just so peculiar. There's lots of negation. And you go, I don't know what it's about, but these Buddhists know what's going on, so I'll just stick with it. And so I have. And so I committed it to memory in English back then, and I would chant it every day. Now I chant it twice a day, and this is just part of my life. I'm not trying to figure it out so much as to resonate with it. And I had this cat, the stray cat showed up like 12 years ago or so. And it ended up living with me. And one day I was chanting the Heart Sutra early in the morning. My eyes were closed. And I opened my eyes, and the cat is sitting right in front of me, looking up like really intensely. His eyes are really open. staring at me like this. I go, okay. And then it turns out the cat would come every day and sit in front of me, and when I would ring the bell after the sutra, it would walk away. And so I don't know what was up with that, but it was quite interesting. So, maybe the cat will be reborn a Buddhist. I'm not sure, but there's a good possibility. So the Heart Sutra is one of the Mahayana treasures, and it's the shortest sutra at 25 lines. And one of the longest sutras, I guess, is 100,000. And then there's numerous other sutras. 25,000 lines, 18,000 lines, 8,000 lines. The Diamond Sutra at 300 lines. And the Heart Sutra. And we studied here the Lotus Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, the Heart Sutra. Some people have been reading the Sutra in 8,000 lines, which is considered by some scholars to be the oldest, that maybe crafted it 100 or so BCE. And what's interesting to me, is these sutras, the Buddha, they didn't write anything down. It was all oral tradition for, maybe 300 years. And so it's all dedicated to memory and practice. Even though, of course, they had the written word there, the Vedic culture, that scripts. And so Buddhists had a different approach to that. Of course, now we have tens of thousands of writings on Buddhism. People are producing books all the time. That's wonderful. But then, there's memory and chanting and so forth. And so that's worth for us practicing, just even a little bit, memorizing certain aspects of Buddhism, committing it to memory and practicing it, letting it vibrate through our being. All of the sutras, the Buddhist sutras, are of the womb realm. Prajnaparamita, the goddess of transcendental wisdom, the suchness of the abode of non-abiding, the mother of all Buddhas. So Prajnaparamita, the whole matrix of energy of sutras and Buddhas potentially came out of the womb of the goddess of wisdom. Sounds good to me. The Heart Sutra is pure medicine. It's an offering of great compassion for the awakening of all beings. It could be considered, and has been, a Dharani, incantation of great power, possibly a koan. Certainly when I came across it here, I go, whoa, maybe that's a koan. I'm not sure, I don't know can't figure it out. And the sutra, it is said by many, it's chanted all over the world. Many, many Buddhist places of Buddhism, wherever, throughout Asia, Southeast Asia, Europe, now America. The Heart Sutra is greatly loved by many and practiced. So it would be interesting to travel to some of these cultures and be able to listen to it in their language. One aspect of the Heart Sutra, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, who's still with us. He's there at his root monastery where he started in Vietnam, being looked after. And he refers to the teaching in the Heart Sutra as interbeing. Interbeing. And I live surrounded, at least on 3 sides, by an orchard, apples and pears and figs and what have you. And I leave some of the fruit in the trees for the wild creatures. So the birds are pecking at them. The crows seem to really like the pears quite a bit. They fuss over them. And then there's a family of deer. There's a fawn and 2 doe that have been living there since the spring. They were born there. They wander all about. I chase them off because they eat the roses and shred them. But now I found a spray, a natural spray that deters them, so they can come and I don't have to chase them off. So they just sit in the orchard. So they eat the apples. As a matter of fact, they've eaten hundreds of apples that have fallen. They just love it there now. And the birds are pecking away, and the insects are eating them. The microorganisms, fruits decaying into the earth. And so there's this whole dance within nature of interbeing. So it'd be quite interesting for society to actually align with those processes. Hymn to the Perfection of Wisdom. World-honored one, the perfection of wisdom is worthy of reverence. The perfection of wisdom is worthy of respect. The perfection of wisdom shines forth as sublime light. She is unstained. The entire world cannot stain her. She is an ever-flowing fountain of incomparable light. And from every conscious being on every plane, she removes the faintest trace of darkness. She leads living beings into her light from the blindness caused by defilements and wrong views. In her, we can find shelter. Sublime and excellent are her works. She inspires and guides us to seek the safety and certainty of the bright wings of enlightenment. She pours forth healing light to those who are blind. She brings light so that all the fear and all despair may be forsaken. She manifests the 5 mystic eyes, showing the path to all beings, and in herself a boundless eye of wisdom. She dissipates entirely the gloom and darkness of delusion. She does nothing about all dharmas. Simply by shining spontaneously, she guides to the spiritual path whatever beings have wandered into dangerous, negative, self-centered ways. She never produces any dharma because she has forsaken all residues of defilement and cognition. Neither does she stop any dharma, herself being unstoppable and unproduced. To those beings who dedicate their mind streams to the liberation and full enlightenment of all that lives, she is known as the Great Mother. She is empty of own marks. She is the universal benefactress who presents as a sublime offering the limitless jewel of all Buddha qualities, the miraculous gem which generates the 10 inconceivable powers of a Buddha. She protects the unprotected, inspiring in them unshakable fearlessness and diamond confidence. She is the perfect antidote to the cycle of birth and death. She is the clear knowledge of the own being of all dharmas. Her transcendent knowing never wavers. She is the perfect wisdom who gives birth to all Buddhas. Mother Prajnaparamita, who turns the wheel of the true teaching. And that's the medicine that informs all of the sutras. You have this lovely reproduction of a painting. This is an image of Padmapani, the bearer of the lotus, also Avalokiteshvara, Sanskrit, for the bodhisattva of compassion. In the Heart Sutra, Avalokiteshvara is the one who is offering the teaching. And this magnificent piece of art is from a cave in India, the Ajanta caves. And they're dating it at roughly 1,500 years old. These caves are quite remarkable. There was a hunting party, the story goes, of British hunters 200 years ago, and they were wandering in the jungles, and they came upon the overgrown caves, and they wandered in. Ultimately, they had rediscovered the Ajanta caves, and the artwork there started around 200 BCE, and it is one of the great treasures of Buddhist art. Sculpture, the caves are all carved rock, and there's soft enough rock that they could carve the rock, and so there's magnificent sculptures, and the ceilings are painted and the walls are painted, and they've got the Jataka tales of the Buddha's former lives, and all these stories are in these caves painted, and the skill level is extraordinarily high. They're very skilled artists. And so this is one of the images from those caves. And Avalokiteshvara, it is said that Avalokiteshvara is very much an androgynous being. Sometimes in some cultures, he is feminine, other cultures masculine. Comes forth as the principal figure to offer the teaching of the Heart Sutra, combining the wisdom of Prajnaparamita with compassion. So it's a little intro to the medicine of the Heart Sutra, and I look forward to sharing it with you. Are there any questions?
Kogen?
No.
So over these 15 years, how has your experiencing of the Heart Sutra moved or changed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. I would say in some ways it's changed a lot, because when I first came here, I knew very little about Buddhism. It's a fledgling bodhisattva. And continuing to study and practice like we all have been together, the teachings just become more clarified, so to speak. So because you hear the word prajna, or even compassion. We all know what compassion is, but I would always say, well, what is compassion? How could I be compassionate? What does it actually mean? And so I think it's changed as far as me maturing and ripening, and in a way that maybe is a little bit more compassionate. So yeah, that way.
Thank you.
Kogen,
Hi.
could you give us any advice? I've been taking up the practice of reciting the Heart Sutra every night. Could you give us some advice about what that practice looks like for you in reciting it? Are you trying to pin down some kind of meaning, or like, is there a certain kind of energy you're hoping to bring to it, or
Yeah, sure.
what could you
Thank
say about that?
Yeah. Well, I usually offer a stick of incense. I have several altars. I sit one on the floor with a nice mandala and a little Buddha there, and I chant the Heart Sutra. It contains so much energy for me, and we'll unfold that as we go along with the next couple of talks. But there's so much information and wisdom packed into this little nugget of a sutra that I'll engage in it, and something will pop up for me, whatever that might be. It might be compassion, emptiness. It says, the skandhas are empty. Okay, so I'm looking at something, and I go, okay, I'm looking at this apple over in the tree. Then my eye is an organ that's looking at it. There's the act of seeing, and then there's my consciousness, which is interpreting these things. And then I start laughing because I go, I think they're all related. I can't sort them out. And so I would say just keep it open and see what unfolds. But I think there's so much concentration in there of wisdom that it'll unfold. Yeah.
Kogen,
Hi.
I have a question also about your practice. In the past, you've mentioned your metta practice, your practice of compassion to other beings.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a beautiful practice, and I'm wondering if you can share that, because I think that the world would benefit from more of us offering that kind of blessing to the world.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's a beautiful thing because, you don't have to have anything. It's just your being, right? And you could be in bed. You could be on a park bench, sitting in the zendo, and, we offer dedication of merit. So in the morning, we've done it today, we pray for the people that are in distress. And that's a lot of us everywhere. It's ongoing. The Buddha's first insight was that there is suffering. And he's absolutely correct. And so I hear that teaching. And so, okay, well, how can I respond? And well, I have the ability as a human being to use my consciousness in a way that's beneficial to everybody. For instance, Donald Trump is in my prayers. I never particularly agreed with Donald Trump, but I don't hate him. And I started integrating him into dedication of merit and his family. Or if someone's in distress, or people that I've had conflict with, and there's been people you just don't get on with so well through your life. And, well, they're not my enemy. I don't want them to be their enemy. We need to resolve this. So I can do that within my own being. My intention as medicine to heal and help people. And we can all do that. We have the option to do that. And we should be doing that. So I work at that.
Kogen, this isn't really a question, but it's just sort of something occurred to me this morning. Have you ever heard that Thoreau and Emerson had actually had some knowledge of the Blue Cliff Records?
I never heard
And
that.
I don't know where I got that. I wish I could remember.
Oh, yeah.
But somewhere I read that. So that was very interesting to me that that might have actually happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll get into that one day.
Maybe I could find it.
They're interesting characters. Yeah. Wonderful. Oh, good. Well, Buddha.